everyone. Welcome to ESPN Honolulu's Fan Friday Talk Story. This is Dave Kawada, and I'm filling in for Tiff Wells, who taking some time off. He actually got married, and we're going to have a special guest today because a good friend of both Tiff and I is, since we do Rainbow Wahine Basketball broadcast, is having head coach Laura Beeman joining us. And coach, thanks again for coming and talking to us, but joining the Fan Friday Talk Story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking me to be on. This will be fun.
You know what? I look, and when the phrase time flies goes by, you're going to be entering your 10th season here as the head coach. I mean, we've been covering you since the beginning when you first came to University of Hawaii. 10 years, that's longer than a lot of relationships go on. But has it seemed like 10 years has gone by that quickly?
This has seemed like a tumultuous 10-year relationship. So yeah, it's there are days where it is absolutely just flown by, like you said. There are other days where I'm like, wow, this has been a long 10 years. But overall, it has been an amazing experience. And I have just been so fortunate to meet so many wonderful people, not just players that have come in and out of my life over the last 10 years, but colleagues and people in the community. So it has been a fun 10 years.
You know, I always like to ask coaches, and I think I've asked you this before, but like when you were in college, obviously you're playing college basketball, but when did coaching as a career kind of hit you? Like in college, were you thinking about becoming a coach, or was there another career aspiration and then afterwards you're like,
Yeah, kind of I had no desire, didn't even really think about being a coach. I loved playing as a kid in high school, and was always, sports were always a part of my life with my family. Never thought about being a coach. And so I actually have a degree in business marketing is my undergrad. Thought I would do something in the business world, maybe an advocate for children. I've always been very passionate about underprivileged youth. And so something of that nature always excited me. Staying in sports somehow, sports marketing, agent. But I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was working at my dad's pharmacy, doing deliveries and cleaning shelves and doing inventory and all the boring blah stuff that you do as a kid. And I remember receiving a phone call from a woman by the name of Melanie Horn, who I had known Coach Horn for a long time. She was a tremendous player at UCLA, and she was at the University of Redlands as an assistant coach, and called me and said, "Hey, we heard you're in the area. We have at that point, it was a kind of a graduate assistant position. We'll pay for your master's and give you a small stipend, but do you want to do this?" And I was like, why not? I don't know what I want to do with my life, so let's get some more education. It keeps me from having to working at the pharmacy. And so it was that phone call that really changed my life. And I got into the coaching mix as just a really wet behind the ears, green kid, and started to take my master's and was like, wow, this coaching thing is kind of interesting and fun. And that's really where it all started, was at University of Redlands.
when you mentioned before, when we've talked before, is about how actually coaching kind of helped you develop and get more education, advanced education that you have. So you have your BA in business that you mentioned, you got your master's in counseling, you also got a master's in physical education. It seems like if you want to have the resume for a coach and the skills needed, those three things kind of put it all together for you, doesn't it?
It's really weird looking back. I don't think I could have chosen better pathways to help me prepare myself for coaching. And let me tell you, I was a kid that didn't like school. I was a decent high school student. I was a terrible college student. I just kind of kept myself eligible. My parents were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, it's just not important. And then when I had to get into my first master's program and I had to be put on probation and had to beg to get in this program, the embarrassment really kicked in. And then I was like, okay, I need to take this serious. And then I think the maturity kicked in for me at that point. And I realized I always knew education was important, but doing well at it. And so the master's programs, it was a challenge for me. I wanted to be a 4.0 student. And so I really kind of dug in. And now looking back, to have a degree in counseling, a degree in physical education, some business, they help me on a daily basis here in Hawaii with my coaching and just relating to kids and running a program that, it's, trying to figure out how to fundraise and dealing with kids' mental health. And I'm not a trained, licensed psychologist. I don't, proclaim to be. But the background in that really helps. Just kind of put you in a position where at least certain things aren't so foreign.
You know, we have to obviously talk about this past academic year, past season under the whole pandemic. Now, gratefully, there was a season you were able to play. There were a lot of things that had to be adjusted. No fans for the one thing. Your schedule was restricted, and obviously the training and everything about a regular season was not regular. But the one thing that I thought about with you was that your parents would always come every year, right? During the regular season, catch a game, stay here. And they couldn't do that. And they couldn't even watch games when you're on the road, I assume, because there were no fans there. I got to think that part for your parents and also for yourself, that must have been, because that was a routine, kind of like each year. But to not have that, along with all the other routines, that must have been challenging for you and your parents to have to kind of deal with.
It was incredibly difficult. This was the longest time frame that I had not seen my parents in my entire life. So it was over 18 months. I actually just returned from California, where I was able to see them for the first time. And when I saw them, I just got a lump in my throat, and my mom cried and I cried. And it was amazing to see them. I knew that they were healthy. I knew that they were doing well, but to see that personally and be able to grab them and hug them was amazing. Yes, last Thanksgiving was hard. Not having them at games was hard. When I was when the team was down in Orange County for, the Big West tournament, and that was something that they would always show up, and not having them there and having them less than, an hour drive away, and I couldn't see them. That was something that I really had to just block out, compartmentalize, focus on the team, not let that emotion get me, and just keep moving forward. So, I've seen them now that they're doing incredibly well. They look great. They are planning on coming out here for sure at Thanksgiving. But after seeing them, they said that they might come out also in September. So it's, they're ready to travel. They're ready to come to Hawaii. We're ready to spend some time with each other, but they have missed their second family in Hawaii also. So yeah, thank you for asking. But it was an amazing week last week to see them.
By the way, what was it like there in Southern California now in terms of, how are they, because they're kind of loosening things up pandemic wise. So are people with, I think, masks, they don't have to wear anymore? Is it kind of more loose there now?
It was almost like COVID had never happened. I hate to say that, knock on wood, but you would walk into a restaurant and nobody was wearing a mask other than servers at times. It's kind of an honor system. If unvaccinated, please wear masks. If vaccinated, you don't have to. But I believe about 98% of the places that we walked into, people were not wearing masks except for servers. And at one establishment, the servers weren't even wearing a mask. So it was different. It was different. But it gives you a hope. It gives you an outlook of, okay, there's going to be a new normal for sure, but things are starting to move back to what we're all used to. And, coming back to Hawaii, not hard to put a mask on. That's what we do to keep our community safe. But it's definitely exciting to look forward and say, oh my gosh, there's going to be a time where our capacities are closer to full. We're not going to be wearing masks. And it's just, it just gives you something to look forward to. It was nice.
Coach, obviously there's a lot of excitement looking into the season, and it's summertime right now. And I often wondered, is summertime, we think of it out in the civilian world as, it was a time when you could take vacations. You took obviously some time off, but how much of a time can you actually take a vacation within a 365-day year period for you?
During season, it doesn't happen, particularly with the way Big West is going into this 10-game, 20-week schedule where we're leaving every other week. There will be no long weekends. There will no bye weekends. So as soon as, I'm going to say September 1 hits, from September 1 until we are done, hopefully end of March, beginning of April, it's just, you're in a grind, you're moving, you're grooving, you're going. And there are you get days off, obviously, but you are lucky if you get a day off during season, because usually you're watching film and meeting with kids and, breaking down your opponents and going over a lot of things. And even when you're not in the office, you're thinking about, why did we lose that game? Or what do we, how well did we play? Why? So there's always those things that you're thinking about. But in the summertime, the time for coaches a lot of times is in May, but then you want to be here for your kids' graduations. So you just have a lot of moving pieces. July, coaches are off island from July 4th to the 13th. We come back the 13th, and then we're here through like the 20th, and then we're gone again the 21st through the 26th, and then we're here until the beginning of August, and then we get back on the floor and we do workouts. And then school starts, and then, like I said, September 1, there's really no rest for the weary. You're really off and going. So, COVID made it different. We had to telework. We could not come into the office, so I was forced to stay home, forced to really take a deep breath. And there was some really positive things that happened during the pandemic. But that is not normal for coaches to have that kind of time off at all. You're usually recruiting or working.
I remember once I asked you, it's particularly during the season, right? There's a lot of stressors, a lot of things going on, like you said, during a season, things moving on. And I asked you, what do you do to kind of decompress or kind of just relieve some stress? And you mentioned you like to clean windows. I remember I chuckled at that. Is that still one of your things? What other things do you like to do, like to just kind of decompress and chill when you have a moment?
I really enjoy being home. I know I come across as this huge extrovert where I just love to be, ripping and racing and, talk and do whatever. There are a lot of times I just like to be at the house. And, we have 2 dogs that I absolutely adore, and I walk them a ton, 2 cats that, deal with us. And so it's really being at home for me. At that point, yes, I do my windows, and I do like to vacuum and clean, and I do have a tidy house. I enjoy a clean house. Over the pandemic, I started cooking more, and I am always looking for great Mexican food. So I have my own salsa recipe now, and I made homemade tortillas and dabbled in a couple of other things. So I cooked more, and that was I don't know if anyone else in the house liked it, but it was good for me. So that was fun. And then I like to exercise, whether, I got a Peloton, and I have been riding that thing to California and back as much as I can to stay in shape, and to also just, it's me time. I can listen to the music I want. And, so it's really kind of being at the house for me right now. When I'm out, I like to get up on the stand up, put my feet in the water. Hawaii is, a beautiful place. So, but a lot of times when I'm doing downtime, it's me. It's just, I need that quiet. I need that moment for myself.
You got a party coming at your house. You said you like to cook now. So what is the Coach Beeman dish that is your go-to?
If it's a big party, I'm ordering out. I'm not doing a big party. That's way too much. I won't cook for the team unless if the entire team is cooking, then I'll add my 2 cents to that. But if we're doing a dinner party or something, gosh, I'm trying to think. Twice baked potatoes, broccoli, cheese sauce. Some type of steak probably. I'm a meat kind of girl. Yeah, a good salad from the garden with a homemade dressing or something. So just kind of keep it fun. And I don't know. It also depends on who's coming over. But Mexican food is something that I will dabble with because I just can't find it here yet. And so when I was in California last week, I think I probably had Mexican 3 or 4 times. It was breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, dessert. But yeah, I will probably stick with the Mexican theme if I think I can pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure you know of this, but when I was in Santa Barbara doing a volleyball game, our general manager, Matt Apana, said one of the best burritos is in Oxnard. And I can't remember the place, but there's some place. And once I figure that out, when you travel down that you can say if that is indeed the best.
You got it.
It was great for me. When we talk about your profession as a coach, I've heard coaches say there are certain elements of coaching that they really kind of dig into. They really like some. Well, I've also heard what they really don't like. Like some say, oh, I don't like the recruiting, or I really like the X's and O's, game planning, or I love working in the gym. What part of the job of being a head coach that you kind of really roll your sleeves up and say, this is the one I want to get into?
I mean, I'll agree with you. The recruiting is hard. The X's and O's are fun. It's kind of a chess match. But I think what I really love to dig into is finding the key to unlock a kid's best potential. Every kid you coach is different, right? Some kids need humor. Some kids need more structure. Some kids need to see things. Some kids need to do things. For me, it's the key to get that young lady to feel so comfortable within our program, to feel so comfortable with failure that they're willing to give as much as they can and know it's a safe place. And not everyone, it's not cut and dry. Everyone's different. Those of you that kids, you treat one kid one way and one kid another way to get results, right? It doesn't mean you love one more. It's just, your kids. And if you want one to clean their room, you say this. And if you want one to clean their room, you say that, or you have to do something. And so it's finding that key for me to get kids to be their best. And that's both on the court and off the court. I don't think you can get players to be their best on the court if they're struggling with things off the court. I think that they go hand in hand. And it doesn't mean I get into their business and I don't psychobabble counsel them. Not at all. I do want them to know they have a safe place. I do want them to know that their mental health is huge to us. I do want them to know that if they're struggling, there are resources here that they can go to. And then let's unlock your full potential. And I think that that's something that it's intriguing to me. I think that's why we get a lot of the kids we get, and why we get such great relationships.
This is ESPN Honolulu's Fan Friday Talk Story, and Dave Kawada here with you, filling in for Tiff Wells. Glad to be joined by Rainbow Wahine Basketball head coach Laura Beeman, going to start her 10th season here at the University of Hawaii. And an interesting thing that, I don't know if you want to call it an anecdote or just something that not everybody gets to experience. You are one of those that likes to watch the Honolulu Marathon when it used to happen. Running by, and it's in your community. It ran by. I ran it twice, and every time I would do it, I'm thinking, gosh, why am I doing this? But I always enjoyed the people in the community who come out on the street and they wave and they encourage you at that early, ungodly hour and telling you to keep going. And it was very encouraging. But you had a situation that I don't think anybody is prepared for. You're out there just rooting some folks on in the marathon a few years ago, and then this happened. What can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it was it was actually Coach Bud, Michelle Nagamine, and some friends of ours. We were all sitting on the back of the truck, and we always get our coffee, and we're good supporters, but we're also eating malasadas while we're watching those people. If they run hard enough, I can keep eating these malasadas, right? So we're enjoying. It's kind of our routine. We had a game versus, I believe it was either Hilo or HPU. I think it was HPU. So I was in my UH gear and I was watching as long as I could. And then, I parked my car, off of the route so I could walk to my car and go. And we're sitting there watching, and all of a sudden there's an older gentleman who just kind of starts to stagger a little bit. And I thought, oh man, this guy's cramping. And all of a sudden he just falls over right in our little grassway in front of the house. And Carla was there with me, and she, we both kind of stood up and we ran over, and immediately you could tell this man was in an emergency situation. He was not responsive. His body was pretty rigid. And so I, thank goodness, I had taught first aid CPR and kind of a first responders course at Mount Sac for 14 years. So this is something that was really second nature to me. Checked his pulse, rolled him over. Carla's very strong, much bigger than me. And I said, you get the chest compressions. And she was gone. And so she was doing chest compressions and I was checking the pulse. And we immediately began CPR, and Coach Bud and Missy were calling people and trying to find an AED. And we knew at that point he was in, having some type of heart situation is what we thought, because we couldn't locate a pulse. And we just kind of went. We just did what we needed to do. Then, other first responders showed up and they were, great. They jumped in, and then next thing we know, they were pulling out an AED and we were clearing people, and they shocked this man. And thank goodness, from what I understand, he survived. And so we were really, really happy. So I remember walking in the house and we were both pretty calm, cool, and collected. And then everyone looked at each other and they were like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Oh my gosh. And you get this feeling, the adrenaline kicks in of, oh, this man could have died. And thank goodness we were there to help. And there was a huge crowd of people, and, here I am in my UH gear. So it wasn't like they kind of figured out, I think, who I was, because I was in my UH gear and Michelle was there. So it was very interesting. And I think it was Michelle who found out that he did survive. And so we were all happy. But if that never happens again, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay with not reliving that experience ever.
That's unreal. I mean, and the thing is, and similar to you, I used to also instruct first aid and CPR, but you always wonder to yourself, how will you be able to react when something actually happens. Like you can teach it, you can talk about it, you can practice it, like anything else. Like even for basketball, right? You can practice and go through but how will the players execute this situation
Right.
until the time comes? And I got to think that's so gratifying that all three of you all four of you were able to really go into action better than probably you even thought it could, right?
Yeah, actually, part of it was it just came so instinctually because I used to teach kids all the time. This is what you do, and you're going to be freaked out, and you're not going to, it's going to feel weird. You're going to have to touch the stranger, and all of a sudden, here I am touching this stranger, and someone was like, "Give breaths," and I'm like, "No, not. That's one thing you don't have to do, nor will I do. I don't know this gentleman, and he just we need to circulate oxygenated blood around his body, and that's what's going on, and we will get help here as quickly as we need to." But just knowing what to do and kind of going through the motions was great. And then having people around that were very calm and very cool, collected. No one was trying to take over. Everyone was just kind of listening, and we were just kind of navigating through it. So again, I hope I never have to do that again. I see injuries all the time on the court, and I stay pretty calm. And so I think that that's probably prepared me also to stay calm, just do what you know how to do, or get out of the way. You can't do, just get out of the way, do no harm, right? So that's the other part of it.
Coach, who are kind of the mentors that have kind of guide you to where you are now?
I always go to my parents. I don't think growing up I realized how fortunate I was. I had coaches and they were great, and I had a lot of people around me that were amazing people. But when I look at why I make decisions I make, why I am the way I am, where my morals, my values are, I have to just look at my parents and how they've treated people their entire life. My parents are amazing people, and they have treated people with empathy, with compassion, their entire lives. And that has nothing to do with being a basketball coach, but it does have something to do with just being a person. And so I believe I apply those principles that I was fortunate enough to see growing up to my team, to people I work with, to people in the community. It's not about taking, it's about giving. And so I have to look at them. My dad was a coach. He was a walk-on soccer coach for 17 years at a high school. So obviously some of what he did and his structure and discipline and how he just stayed very level, obviously that kicked over to me. My mom being someone that has some humor and keeps things, my mom's just very realistic. You're never high, you're never low, just it's life and let's go. And then she had some humor in there that you're not expecting, and that always was fun to see. So I think that I'm fortunate to just have two absolutely amazing people that raised me. And if I'm half of what they are, then I'm hoping I'm okay.
You kind of sound like a combination of both of your parents and how you describe them. You got that humor, you kind of not too high, too low, you kind of do what you need to do. So that's kind of interesting. Finally, Coach, University of Hawaii just got a couple of new head coaches, Rich Hill for baseball, Scott Simpson for men's golf. Now, Scott Simpson has been here, but Rich Hill is moving over here. He's going to be his first time. Now, he's been here before. He's not totally new to this city or this state. But for any new coach coming in to the University of Hawaii, what would be maybe some guidance you could give them to either acclimate to the university, to the city or to the town, that would kind of make their transition a little bit easier?
I think first off, you sit back and you evaluate a little bit. I also think that you have to put your best foot forward. You can't be something that you're not going to be able to sustain. And so when you come over here, you have to be who you are. If you're coming over here looking to take and looking for something, your stay here will be short. If you're coming here to really be a part of our aloha and to give back to this community and be a part of it and be a part of something bigger than you, and you can figure that out authentically, then I think that Hawaii becomes your home. I was given some great advice by a couple people right when I walked in the door. Don't get political. Don't take. And I didn't understand the don't take part until I was like, oh, I get it now. Not that I was taking, but I just didn't understand what that meant. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's never as good as it seems here, and it's never as bad as it seems here. We have our goods, we have our bads. And If you get wrapped up in one or the other, then I think it can kind of throw you off kilter. So I think the big thing though is you have to be who you are authentically. And if you're not, people will smell it down the street. And so when I came in, I was older. I was kind of like, this is who I am. Sure, I want people to like me, but if I try to be something I'm not, then that's not going to go over well. And thank goodness people kind of like that authentic approach. I'm not a political person. I won't get political. People probably know some of my stances. But I think that's caused a lot of just success and great relationships. I've also been really fortunate to have President Lasner, for a long part of my career. I think he's an amazing man. He does an amazing job in a very difficult position. And he is a president that is a student first, relationship first kind of guy. And that has trickled down into David Matlin. I always say that if I have to go through another boss, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, because David Matlin is an amazing guy also. And I know he's not always the most popular guy in the room because of decisions he has to make. But it's never with a hidden agenda. It's for what's best for the student athletes, what's best for our department. And, I have this beautiful view right now of our brand new football stadium out my window. And I'm sitting here going, this is an incredibly difficult feat that it's going to get done. And I think it's going to be exciting to have students on this campus and people on this campus. Is going to give us a buzz. And so watching all of these great leaders navigate, Lois Mannon is another just an incredibly strong woman who has helped navigate me through some tough times. I've been really fortunate to have great leadership and to sit back and really watch that and learn from that. And hopefully it's made me better in my position as a head coach. So not that anyone's going to want my silly advice, but that's pretty much, I think, what I would say.
There's not going to be much tickets available for football because it's less attendance. Is it okay if I watch it from your window on a certain game?
I'm trying to figure out how much trouble I would get if I rented out my office. I don't think I'm allowed to do that since I don't own it. But gosh, it is so tempting to say, okay, I have a fundraiser coming up. Guess what? I have an incredible view of the stadium. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to be allowed to be in here, but I may have to watch film on football days. So that's.
That so happens. I'm sorry, I lied. Last thing. You mentioned about, as in a kind of guidance for a new coach coming here, don't take. How do you explain that, the concept of don't take?
Obviously I go to meetings, fundraising meetings, and the one of the last things I say is, if you can help, we'll take your money, right? So that is taking, sure. I think it's that people understand that part of my job. But it's not like I walk into a room and say, I want something for nothing. I think if I'm having a one-on-one meeting, I am sincere about, for your business, can we run a camp or a clinic, or can I come speak to people in your organization, or is there something that I can do to put a little bit more value on this money? Most people are like, Coach, this is about your players. We know you need cost of attendance. We know you need snacks and meals. And so you're asking, it's not like I'm asking, hey, I want a car. I'm not coming there asking for me. I'm asking for things that are going to better these kids. Cost of attendance is a huge issue. Supplemental meals nutrition is a huge issue. And there are people here that understand that and know that and want to give. And so I think it's the manner at which I ask, and what I'm asking for. And then it's also, at any point in time, someone can call me and say, Coach, this is what I need. Can you help me out? And I'm going to reciprocate that. And I'm going to do it in a way that is genuine. So I think it's that. I think that there are a lot of people, not in this department. There are some coaches, sure, that are just all about what I need, give it to me. They don't work well with others. They're not willing to give back. That's not the atmosphere I want to create, not only just around my life, but with my players. And so when we can do a clinic at New Uano YMCA for the kids there for free, man, we're going to be there. And if something comes out of it, great. If nothing comes out of it, it's a day my players always remember. And it's a day that those kids that we serve remember. And if it keeps a kid off the street, or from using drugs, or from getting in a bad relationship, or wanting to go to school, man, you can't put a price tag on that. And so if we can be a part of that, we're going to be a part of that. So that's kind of what I mean about, you can't just always take people's money and take people's time, take people's advice. You have to have the willingness and the wantingness to give back and authentically to make change. I'm passionate about kids. And if I can help make a change in kids, their mental health and what they do and don't do, I want to be a small piece of that village.
Extremely well said. Every time I talk to you, Coach, I learn something more and I feel more excited into my day. So I always appreciate our chats that we have. I want to thank you, first of all, so much for joining us here on ESPN Honolulu's Fan Friday Talk Story. Head coach Laura Beeman, Rainbow Wahine Basketball coach. Good luck this upcoming season. And thanks again for joining us.
I am looking forward to seeing people this year. So thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you, Coach.
Aloha.